on it. But as it stands, both of these players, like I said, have been dominant throughout the course of this tournament. And wow, look at the way that these hands have already started out.
Yeah, the Wild Growth Star for Theude, usually you probably only need one. Oh, wow, and replacing it with Innervate, not too shabby, honestly, because then you can coin Wild Growth and Innervate out a Sludge Belcher. Although you do have a kind of a weak turn 4 there, unless you have turn 3 with 4 mana. But most likely you'll be able to pick up in something. Anyways, the whole point is that this Ram Druid takes its time. And Theude, he's not running combo, but he's favoring it for a lot of dense, strong minions in the mid game, like Sludge Belchers and more.
Yeah, this is a really strong opening hand.
Absolutely.
RDU, though, really on point here. Decides to queue up his Warrior deck. Warrior's not only going to be good against his Handlock, but it's also going to be good against his Druid deck. We saw a similar matchup to this. It might have been even this exact matchup where Warrior was really dominant against this version of Druid, because this version of Druid is relying so much on just powerful minion scaling and not nearly as much on actual pressure and burst towards the end. I think this matchup is pretty heavily in favor of the Warrior. Just able to deal. It's just able to deal with all the minions as the game goes along. So once you get to the late game point, you may be at 10, 11 life, but there's no actual push from the Druid at that point because he's not running the Force Nature combo.
Yeah, that is true, actually. Like, a point that you don't have to worry about burst from this Druid deck whatsoever. If RDU assumes that, and he's been doing his homework, which I trust that he has been, it gives him the ability to play a little bit more liberally with his life. I'm hesitant to say who's favoring the super late game because they both have Kel'Thuzad, which late game, he can kind of completely mix up the equations. You're not really sure if you're necessarily in a favorable position because of what you're able to get out of your legendaries. But then cards like Ysera definitely make up that deficit as well. Druid doesn't have an easy time to deal with it other than silencing with Keeper of the Grove. So let's just see how these guys utilize information that's been put out so far. These guys have had time to study each other's decks. Theude has been watching RDU's games intently since the beginning of the day. Keep in mind that he played around 6 hours ago for his Winter Bracket Finals. And now he's had all the time in the world to study RDU.
Wow, Whirlwind is a great pickup right here.
Oh man, you draw a card off the Acolyte and then you execute the Ancient of War, which is pretty much the ideal target.
Yep.
Especially since the Unstable Ghoul died.
Yep.
It is a little painful that you have to lose your Sen'jin Shieldmaster because of it, but I think you're willing to kind of take the good with the bad here.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of curious. It's funny you mentioned that because I was actually wondering why he would even attack with the Sen'jin in this spot if he intended to roll in. Couldn't you just hold it back?
Yeah, you get the 1/2, so you have a little bit extra damage on the Unstable Ghoul. Oh, sorry, the Sludge Belcher, so that way you get an extra card.
I don't know. That's something that I would like to think about a little bit more, because he could just not attack with his Sen'jin and leave it there as a taunt. So the Sludge Belcher, I guess it kind of works out the same way. The Sludge Belcher still has to attack into the Tazdingo. Yeah, it works out the same way, the way attacking is... I don't think it makes a difference between attacking and not attacking. Other than attacking restricts your opponent's options.
I think the only difference is 1 or 2 health on this little taunter dude. What's the name of the slime that's left over? Is it just Sludge?
I think it's Ooze. Slime, maybe?
Ooze. Okay. Not really sure. Don't really pay attention to those small details just yet, but we'll pick it up the name eventually.
I'm pretty surprised that he didn't silence this Acolyte of Pain. Is that surprising to you at all?
I think he really wants to save us for... There's a lot of targets you want to silence in this Warrior deck. I mean, he's had time to study RDU. I think he's not worried about one more card, as opposed to he is using a silence to be able to shut things up, like Karin, like Ysera, like Sylvanas. I think he cares about that a lot more.
Okay, that's respectable. I think Ysera is a much bigger problem, and something like Kel'Thuzad could be a bigger problem too.
Oh, absolutely. For certain. RDU picks up Slam, another utility card that's kind of been in and out of decks recently. And now let's see what he's kind of doing, because his turns have been kind of simple and straightforward when he had minions to play, but now it's a little bit more awkward with kind of finagling. He could get rid of the Druid of the Claw with the Shield Slam. But let's see what he draws off of some of these cards first.
Two Fiery War Axes. Not going to be making too much use of those anytime soon.
Nice. He draws into it. Yeah, I think shaving shield slam is really good.
This is a tricky spot now. We see that Ysera in hand, and that actually could make a really big difference. I think it's just too much to pass up, I think, for this Keeper of the Grove, though. Could be wrong.
His turn seems to be really defensive otherwise, right? If you try to... Like, you kill off a 5 health creature by doing this. So in this... And you still have a second Keeper of the Grove. This is still a really powerful turn.
Oh, no doubt.
Plus, you might not even have Ysera for a while, or other cards equivalent to it. Like, you might not have Sylvanas and some of these other cards that can be throwing a real big wrench into things. Kel'Thuzad. Oh, man. Kel'Thuzad can give him another Cairn. Oh, yeah, wow, what a top deck by RDU. That is so crucial, because now he can adjust the board and even Suicide and gain things. Gosh. That is bad news. 2 Cairns in the deck.
Right after the silence gets played, too. Is he any way to kill this? Okay, so he can 4, 5. No, he's just. I think he's just short. Anyway, you slice it.
Oh wait, I think he does have.
No, he can't. He can't. Okay, he can.
Wrath. Wrath with spell power allows him to push through.
So he attacks his face and the ooze into the Sludge Belcher. He attacks Keeper of the Grove into the 1/2. Mm-hmm. Then he attacks his Sunwalker into Kel'Thuzad, and then Blood Mage and Wrath. Wow, that's a really good pickup.
But look at what he's pushing out and trying to address, and look at the hand size of Druid compared to Warrior.
Well, sure, but he's got to kill the Kel'Thuzad. This is like number 1 main priority. If he doesn't kill the Kel'Thuzad this turn, it's over.
The point I'm trying to make is the impact of Kel'Thuzad has.
Oh,
and you know what? The fact that he's able to get these really strong legendary values, and he has Cairn number 2 here. RDU's off to an excellent start to the series.
This is, again, another example of how powerful this card actually is. A lot of people, cited that as a win more card, but I'm convinced otherwise. I think it's actually very strong and is going to be a force for quite a while.
How about a win now card?
Yeah,
not win more.
That's sort of the term that I like to accept. Like in other card games, like in Magic, for instance, there are plenty of win more cards. Because that's a game where once you have a lead, if you're really comfortable with your lead, you can just kind of sit back and respond to stuff. You can actually play stuff during your opponent's turn. But in a game like Hearthstone, it's not like that at all. Once your opponent's collected enough damage to kill you, they can just kill you. So win now cards is a very good term for them instead of just win more.
Okay, Theude has very heavy hands, and you can't play more than 1 minion per turn. That is a little brutal, because then it gives Warrior the ability to set up.
Uproot.
Not yet, my friend, but in time.
I'm going to see an Uproot one day. When I see that Uproot, I'm going to post like 30 Craigasms in chat.
Whoa, execute off the top for RDU.
Execute.
I can't believe it. He's going to have the most disgusting board to face off against Druid. He's got Cairn and Ysera, and there's nothing Theude can do about it.
I'm speechless. That draw ended the game, I think.
Ysera awakens. Alright, well, Theude will try to do something with this Wild Growth.
Good luck. He really needs a Mind Control. That costs 8 mana.
Sylvanas, maybe? That could be something that brings him back, but he draws Swipe.
Yeah, you gotta play the Sunwalker here, I think. Oh, this is a brutal position.
Truth is my shield.
Yep, because now RDU can continue to punch through. He's got Fiery War Axe and other cards to kind of continue to boost it. And Ysera will draw him every card twice over, drawing 2 cards per turn from the Emerald Dream World. Not too shabby. Even things like Laughing Sister give Druid a hard time. How can they remove something that can't be targeted?
Oh my gosh. Does he even need anything else?
Nope. Although something like a Faceless would be kind of cool. Then you F12, and then you post it on your Twitter later on to show what you guys have been able to accomplish. Theude is going to be taking a lot of damage and be put on his last turn. I can't really foresee this going more than 1 more turn.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything he can draw that gets him out of this. Deathwing, maybe?
Well, Nope, he needed that way earlier. But you know what? It was kind of the writing was on the wall several turns ago, and Theude will drop game number 1. RDU secures a 1-0 lead. Keep in mind.
I would think mid-range scaling decks where he can just play taunt after taunt, and it ends up being an insurmountable advantage that comes increment by increment as you continue to play these giant taunts. But it looks to me like he's just queuing up the Warrior Mirror. Very confident. I like it.
Warrior vs. Warrior is a very interesting. There's two interesting schools of thought. There's one that thinks that you should play a little more aggressive, and one that you should play a little more passive. And it does kind of curtail to how you build your decks. If you play more aggressive, you're able to capitalize and limit things like their shield slams. And that's where like guys like KitKats, where he loves playing Korkon elites, he said he never lost a mirror matchup because he was able to constantly pressure his opponent out of the game. Similar to what Forsen did with his own Warrior, right? You kind of take that stance. If you have Frothing Berserker, if you have like these cards with, the cool Taskmaster to add pressure, you win the game. And then there's the people who thought, well, you just armor up and you fight from 50 health. That's when the game starts.
Those are the ones I like to see. I like seeing the 26.
Yeah?
I like the 26 armor matches.
Oh gosh.
Just like
we might get it too.
Spalders that are like sticking 7 feet out. They just duke it out.
Well, Harrison Jones also one of the most important cards in the matchup, and finally being able to see some good usage. With Gore Howell kind of being replaced, I think there isn't really a better target to use than Harrison Jones.
For sure.
And I think this is where you can bring him out immediately. Yep. Take out that 4 extra damage. Draw a card.
That belongs in a museum. Picking up a card, but Harrison gets Whirlwind in the meantime. That's like he's actually going through the dungeon now.
Yeah, a little backlash. Damn, be careful, Harrison.
The boulders chasing him.
It's dangerous out there. Well, even more than that, it's like a spinning set of knives or something.
That's the one from the Holy Grail, right?
Yeah.
Like right when they get in the temple, the first thing they have to go through.
Yeah, it's one of the first traps or whatever. It's been a while. By the way, again, just sparring. It's kind of interesting that neither player has been able to build up armor whatsoever because of what's been going on, but seems like for the most part, kind of just a formality of shadow boxing. Nothing actually happening of consequence right now.
Yep. This might be the first actual turn of the game. How do you respond to this Black Knight?
Well, I'll put more taunts, why not? Ascension Shieldmaster also an interesting tech choice. It's not always included in warrior decks. In fact, the 4-mana slot is often kind of ignored other than things like Deathbite. People kind of put Gnomish Inventors in because they took out Azure Drakes for things like Sludge Belchers, Harrison, and Loteb. And, other than that, it was kind of ignored for a while when Korkon Elite was taken out. So it's interesting to see that he chooses to go for that instead of like Defender of Argus or something else.
Yeah, it is a little interesting. Gnomish Inventor is always one of those cards that interests me because it's like, I look at it and I'm like, can you really not afford 1 more mana for an Azure Drake? And the answer a lot of times is no, you can't afford 1 more mana for an Azure Drake. You just gotta
because it's the difference between armoring up and then having 2 cards you have to play on the same turn.
Yeah. Kel'Thuzad's drawn.
Ooh. Just look at the quality of hand. He's got 2 premium removal, and he's got 5 legendaries.
It feels like he's a little bit behind to me, though.
Well, he won't be for very much longer. If Theude keeps drawing and similar to this. But he's got shield blocks to kind of bounce him back.
These shield block draws are going to be really important. Fiery War Axe. Good pickup.
It's good for what's on the board at the moment.
RDU's hand is just so heavy.
Yeah.
He might fail to actually just have enough time to play all this stuff.
It depends again on what Theude is able to draw too, because it's not like his hand is incredible amount of pressure. It's just usually securing, and that's actually kind of why cards like Whirlwind, they sometimes feel dead, as much as they're really good to, enable a lot of the things like Armorsmith and Acolyte of Pain. some people choose not to run Whirlwind at all. Like I saw, I always kind of use Theude as an example, but I think he's a guy who really understands deck building to a certain degree, especially with classes like Control and Warrior. He tried running without Whirlwind for a while, and it functioned pretty decently for him because you get the same thing at a Death Bite and Unstable Pool.
Right.
And, the Whirlwind just occupies a slot where you can have a strong minion in there. Things to do. It's like the miracle.
Yeah. This armor's going to start building up really quickly, by the way. Any minion that RDU plays is threatened by Execute, except for Sylvanas.
There we go. Sylvanas allowing him to kind of affect the state of the board.
That was a very important draw. Wow, that swung the game completely around. RDU's at the full house again, by the way. It's full of 9s.
Actually, I completely brain farted here, Admirable. Because now that I see Cool Taskmaster, it was Cool Taskmaster that was taken out. Excuse me. But again, that's another flexible card that people felt like wasn't necessarily needed. But the point is, as much as people might be laughing now a little bit about how I explain things, the lower cost cards of Warrior have been more liberally cut in favor of scaling into late game. That's what I'm trying to drive at. The main point, as much as my small fine details might be incorrect.
Faceless Manipulator on Sylvanas. Okay, so that's an Execute, not a Shield Slam. I was like, there's got to be a way.
Oh, you thought you could execute this?
Well, I thought it was a Shield Slam for a minute. I was like, he can Shield Slam his Sylvanas.
It's a little tricky.
Yep.
How you can get this Sylvanas to tag in.
What now?
But Faceless is one of these MVPs in the control mirrors. Sylvanas is too. Theude is running out of time. He needs to kind of act quickly. He also wants to deny the draws, by the way, of the Acolyte, so it makes sense that what he's going to use is... Oh, Fire War Axe. Or he uses his Armor Smith health. Makes sense, too.
17 armor. But his hand does not have 5 legendaries in it. So...
No, it does not.
He might be finding himself in a tough situation soon.
Yeah, and if Radu picks up something like Ysera Awakens off the Emerald Dream, he can answer the board immediately and be able to do some big damage. It doesn't matter what his opponent's health is, as long as he has the final say in what minions stick around.
It's a nightmare. Honestly, I think he wants to get this Ysera executed. God, this is still a tough spot. Okay, let's take a look at some plays here, because there's some crazy stuff that's going on. Say, for instance, you attack the Sylvanas for 1. You can Faceless Manipulator on his Sylvanas. And how do you turn that into now nabbing his Ysera? That's what I want to know.
Well, it does require a little bit of interesting sequencing, but I don't think you can activate at this turn in confidence because of the way the brawl works, right? You have to brawl off the Faceless Manipulator, and then Ysera has to survive, and then you have the last say in it, right?
Right. So if that was the case, he could just suicide his minions into Ysera and do it that way. There's also gotta be other ways to do it. There's so many ways to play this turn. If you want a strong puzzle, screenshot this right now and figure out everything you can do with this, because there's so many plays that are going on.
Okay. Well, he's gonna just Faceless this Ysera directly and then execute it.
Yep. Whirlwind is also going to take out the... Wait, he's going to Whirlwind? Wait, what?
Oh, he's going to leave up Ysera.
Wow.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Well, it feels like there's a bigger target to use Execute on, or maybe he can even brawl in the future.
He's really thinking about this matchup here, and he's understanding how powerful something like Kel'Thuzad can be, I think, when this happens.
Yeah.
That's probably what he's aiming at. I am a little surprised he doesn't Whirlwind Execute, though.
You can tell one person who probably will be executing that.
Oh, really?
Most likely RDU, and he is going to go for it.
These legendaries
Why not?
start taking over the game. More armor than health.
Dragon down to 15 HP, but still at 38 life.
Wait, so why does he execute it now?
Did he not have the mana and we missed something? No, he had like 3 extra mana, right, last turn?
I am
Something
really
along that
confused. I guess because he's just. I guess he's doing it because it's just a big swing turn.
Okay.
Like, look at how much pressure he's getting on the board when he plays it this way. That could influence his decision a lot.
It is true. It could have been a conditional thing of like, I wait for him to play another card. Like maybe he needs to save, execute for Kel'Thuzad, but he realizes maybe he doesn't have it.
Right.
Because, yeah. But then you're still kind of accomplishing the same thing anyways. You're killing your Sarah. And you still have no answer to Kel'Thuzad.
RDU's hand is awfully heavy still. El Señor del Fuego.
Love to hit Emerald Drake.
Oh,
Or even
gosh.
BGH. Something like that would be nice.
Oh, is he gonna Nightmare the unstable goal? I like this.
Wow, that's really clever, because it doesn't die until the beginning of your turn.
Alright. Not the strongest minion to hit. Picks up an Alexstrasza. Gosh, this is... Oh, this is getting tough.
That is a really cool way to protect your Ragnaros. Very creative, I like it.
He's on fire.
Theude has Alexstrasza, but is there better play in the picture here? Do you feel threatened enough that you want to brawl?
Oh my gosh.
1 in 4 chance for this to go awfully. 25% chance. Theude is risking a lot here. Oh, and the Emerald Drake survives. That takes major balls to pull off what Theude just did. But hot damn, has it paid off so far. And now RDU, he lost his Ragnaros there. And he's going to be under some significant pressure.
Where do you go from here? He's got plenty of minions to play. But he's running low on life. His opponent is sitting at 42 right now. Shield Slam's a pretty bad one for the moment.
Let's see. Yeah, you can't really do much here.
Yep.
Romosh seems like to be the only way to kind of do something on the board. But even then, that feels suboptimal because Gromosh can get taken out by the Emerald Drake. Ah, this turn is very painful for RDU, that's for sure. Ysera for Theude, or Faceless rather, has effectively taken out Gromosh.
Oh my gosh. Look
Execute
at that
to continue
draw.
to press.
Yep. This is... That draw may have actually won the game.
Well,
Sarah, the
hold on.
opponent.
And he's going to be able to push for damage and execute here. Although I can't really imagine if he wants to save that. If there's the time to use execute and not save it, it's now.
Oh, like now is definitely when you use it. You pick off this Armor Smith, so it can't be full Taskmaster to take out the Drake or something. Execute on the Gromish. Now a big portion of his burst is gone. Kel'Thuzad's looking a lot less frightening. You have 15 power with the minions on the board. This is like exactly where you want to be as a warrior.
Right,
he's
well,
down cards
he's
in his hand, so he feels nervous, but goodness, this is a great board position.
15 damage. How does he even survive? Can he even survive?
I don't think it can anymore.
He can only if he's doing something really unconventional, but RDU is going to concede, and Theude has evened up the series. And what a way to turn around. Off of those top deck executes, basically jockeying for advantage, and now the series is tied, 1-1.
Yeah, there's again, the critical turn of that game, something I'm going to have to go down. I mean, I may write it.
Next Ramus. RDU is trying to tackle Warrior from a different perspective, but he feels more confident in his hand lock going against Warrior. And let's see if it pays off for him, and he gets Twilight Drake right off the start. So this is a very good beginning for RDU. And Theude is going to keep Death's Bite, Mulligan, and everything else. Handlock being one of the MVP decks, and you're about to see why. Theude has cards like Execute and BGH, though, and that's what you need to start off if you're going to go toe-to-toe with Handlock.
BGH is a really big difference maker in this matchup. If his opponent is relying on Giants to get the job done, that's going to be a big board swing.
He gets Mountain Giant as well, but we know that the BGH does counter, but still, RDU feels very confident in his start.
Could be one of those trap cards. I hate when my cards trap me into making bad plays because they're such good plays. I'm like, cards!
Nice, this is clever. You know, RDU is trying to put out minions beforehand rather than playing for the greedy tap the first 2 turns that you can, and then push out like an Agile Drake or Mountain Giant, and risking your opponent from shield block, shield slamming. He's trying to limit his opponent's range by playing this Farseer first, so that way he can limit the armor intake and be able to pressure with Twilight Drake.
Yeah, keeping armor under control is a really big deal because it pulls shield slam out of their early range.
But execute, 2 of them has appeared in Toy's hand, and that's exactly what you need to do to deal with these Drakes. The sooner the better, too.
BGH really being the difference between being able to win and lose this game, too.
Oh, off the top of the deck, RDU gets a Twilight Drake number 2. Theude has execute number 2 also, so he's got ways to respond. It will be a little bit inconvenient because he can't drop a 5-mana creature, but what better way to deal with the Drake? They're supposed to die anyways as soon as they come out.
I don't think Sludge Belcher's that bad here either, because this is one of the spots where you feel comfortable paying a few points of life. Oh, you know what? He can actually just attack with the Death Spite and then use his Cruel Taskmaster to kill it too.
Oh, also a fair point. I was kind of you always kind of assume it as a Twilight Drake has like insane amount of health, but yeah, as a consideration here.
This is a really strong turn. Wow, Death Bite is so good.
Yeah.
All the next novice cards continue to impress me. It's like, you know that they're good, but then when you start seeing them in practice, they're so good. And my gosh, RDU's about to get some bad news.
I've got the
Rude Awakening, he's got the beast in his sights. 3 damage across the board, and a 4/2. Oh, he's just spamming well plays!
Yeah, RDU knows that at this stage he's pretty far behind because he has exact answers. And he's even able to save his execute. You know, it's kind of like what you're saying, we're so used to certain conventions of like, well, I use execute on Twilight Drakes and shield slams on Giants. But, you know, he's able to kind of fight really effectively with these mid-range cards. And now he's got a pretty decent board to boot with some late-game legendaries and options in his disposal. Toy is off to an excellent start.
You go forward from here. How big of a threat is this Ancient Watcher? I know it sounds a little bit strange at first, but if that gets silenced or Shadow Flamed or any of those things, like how worried are you about those kinds of plays?
What now?
Is this on your threat meter?
There's only so much you can dedicate your resource to. Like, are you tossing in your own health and trying to trade with a minion in order to do that? Then you open yourself up to Hellfire either way. Like, I think it's a little bit tough to call. He is going to hedge his bets, so I think he's completely siding with you here, Admirable. But at a certain time, there's also like this strain of thought where you can't play around Shadow Flame too much early on.
Yeah, you definitely can't play around it too much, but giving it some consideration makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Hellfire.
Yeah, this is why he didn't use something like his Sludge Belcher. Like, people are like, why do you sacrifice BGH unnecessarily and overkill? But you need to kind of make sure that you don't die to the other AoE. If you're gonna play around Shadow Flame, you make sure you play around other AoE as well.
Right. Ooh, he picks up a Soulfire. Not about using it, no dice though.
So where does Theude go from here?
Well, he's got a couple of options.
I think quite literally a couple of options. I think he's got 2.
He's got a few more than that. Have you ever lived the triple Armorsmith dream, by the way? With facing your own Armorsmith and then like whirlwinding 3 times? From like board style effects, and you just end up with like 54 armor.
Right. You play like Wild Pyro, and you do like some like whirlwind, and you just gain like an insane amount of armor in one turn. Didn't like Tides gain 400 armor in 1 turn or something like that before?
I have no idea. That sounds like something.
There was some like insane video where he somehow gained like 400 armor or 200 armor, like something in the hundreds, where it was just unbelievable. And of course, chat encouraged him to shield slam the face right afterwards for lethal. But, one can only dream. The decision is whether or not he wants to remove Theude or wants to go for board development turn here.
Speak to me.
I mean, the Acolyte, like, you develop the Acolyte because you don't have good cards in your hand at the moment other than situational reaction cards.
Strike.
He wants more things like getting his own Theude or his second Sludge Belcher.
Yeah. I think underdeveloping is an okay play here. You have plenty of time to wait. You're not under a lot of pressure. Your armor at a certain point is a threat to handlock.
Mm-hmm. Makes total sense. RDU pushes out the Ironbeak Owl, so that way he can go for some damage.
Yep. It's important to go for face here, too. Because, again, armor at a certain point is a threat. You have a very limited amount. Oh, he's actually going to Shadow Flame. Huh. Look at that. That makes much more sense. He's going for the face. That's like 10 times more sense making. Even though it makes a ton of sense to go for the face anyway, simply because your opponent doesn't have a strong response on your Loatheb to begin with.
Alright,
yeah.
Theude. He has Alex Straza.
Just a good old.
He's got
8/8
good answers to. He's got good answers to big legendaries too, with Execute and Sylvanas, or sorry, big giants that is. You know, RDU when he lost his Fire Overwhelming, he lost his Counter potential, but he still has decent cards in his hand. The only thing is that Warrior has so many threats nowadays in their decks because they're adding Ysera, they're adding Kel'Thuzad, and more cards like that. That it becomes a little bit trickier to kind of approach the late game without in danger of just getting bursted always from the hand with Grommash.
Right.
It's always something that's being threatened. Like, he has Fiery War, actually. He feels like he needs to deal with this and still go above 15 health and 4 taunt.
Loatheb's still on the board. It's dealt 10 damage now. Gosh, Loatheb's been so key to this game.
And continues to do so.
Speak to me.
Because Theude is still not dealing with him. He wants the ability to have something like Grommash potentially finish the game soon and use his weapon only when absolutely necessary. He's had so much armor to play with, so I guess eventually he's going to have to make a tough decision. And he's also been very careful not to put RDU's health down unnecessarily either.
Yep.
Looks like Hellfire might pop out here.
Looks like it's going to be a really strong turn.
A little bit of desync and lag here from Theude's point of view, so we don't know exactly what's going on at the moment, but RDU has played his turn out, it looks like. And from the match history, it looks like Loatheb attacked into the Sludge. Oh, looks like he soul-fired first, the Armor Smith, and then attacked into Loatheb in the Sludge Belcher, and then Hellfired. RDU's still afraid of Grommash and a Cruel Taskmaster. In fact, RDU feels like he's... Is he saying he's well played because he feels like he's died and he's lost the game? Because it's the second or third time he's done it this game.
I think that is the case. I think he genuinely expects something like Grommash with Cruel Taskmaster to come out in this position. So a bit of good news. You're not dead yet, but a little bit of bad news. You're facing down a lot of damage.
Well, you can get rid of Peace Giant.
It doesn't even faceless the gold one. Come on, man. Doing
it wrong, RDU. Or at least he wants to make the one giant that's already existing not feel left out.
Yeah, well, I got news flash for him. He's gonna feel left out because he's gonna die. He's gonna be dead. He's not even gonna be there. So big pickup here from Theude. He needs to make something happen, and he's going to go for Brawl. I can't say I disagree. This is an important one to win.
There's a 50-50 chance with the outcomes he'll be okay with.
Oh, gosh. Oh, he's thinking about
Brawl,
though.
Still a little bit of a hard call.
Yeah, it needs to be... I think this needs to be Brawl. Like, you don't have time to wait. You're facing down 20 points of damage on the board. You don't want to execute for one single point of damage. You don't want to trade Loatheb in. I think once you've gotten to this point and your opponent's got 2 Molten Giants on the board and they've both been taunted and you don't really have any action in your hand, that a 50% chance for a good outcome, I don't think that's bad news at all.
And you're dealing with Molten Giants already. So, you know, he does have one more Molten Giant, but you don't know what else he has backed up. You have to deal with the immediate threat, which is the Brawl. And Theude does go for it.
Oh my
What
gosh.
will be surviving? It's the one giant that has 1 point of damage, and he's going to execute it because he doesn't want to take any more. That is a painful exchange for Theude and RDU. The bad news for Theude is that he's got another Molten Giant ready to go.
Yeah, I don't know if executing is superior to using the weapon there. It probably is, just because paying the life just feels awful, and you have no way to activate the execute other than your Fiery War X. So it's just one of those spots where you've kind of fallen victim to just not having the right combinations of cards. Sylvanas going to come to play anyway.
Yep.
Not very much time left on the clock. This is 11 damage that's going to be coming across the board.
He's at 26 health. And you can kind of see that Theude, he is going to be... Oh, wait. Oh, it looks like RDU top deck a Mountain Giant and somehow played it and attacked. And now Theude is going to top deck Shield Slam off of a shield block. But still going to be a little bit short to make it clean. He's going to actually be able to steal one of these Giants. And play his Cairn. What a crazy turnaround. This is such a sick turn. Oh my god.
Yep. This has got to be the way it's done too. Otherwise, you shield slam your own Sylvanas and take a Giant. You don't accomplish enough.
Yeah, you take one of his Giants. You preferably take his 8/8.
Take his Giant. Punish him.
Alright. Giant
Yeah, he takes the 8/8. He's in really good shape.
Oh, it takes the Mountain Giant. I don't know if I can get another Soulfire.
That's the thing, is it only matters if RDU can actually put together some damage here. That's really the only time it's important. Or if RDU, for whatever reason, decides to start attacking Cairn. That Sylvanas, though, it's acting as a good bit of removal. These next draws from RDU. Leroy, that's 14
Is Leroy
damage.
as removal, or is Leroy the way to kill? RDU is
Mortal
going
Coil
for a
of the
Mortal
Whelps.
Coil. He's trying to go for a win here. 14 damage.
That's
No, he's
not
going for removal.
quite enough. Yeah, he's got to kill this Giant. It's threatening his Giant directly, and he needs this repetitive damage now. Oh my gosh.
That Leroy was a very important draw. I wonder if RDU was trying to go for his own faces or something, because then maybe he would have been able to Mortal Coil faces off the top. That would have been bananas.
Fiery War Axe, but he's got to take 8 damage to use it. He doesn't have another option, though.
Nope. It's Fiery War Axe or
Oh
Bust
my
here.
gosh.
And that's going to make RDU be able to top deck a few things to win the game.
What now?
But how many cards does RDU even have? Is he almost out of damage?
There's just no other option here. You're on your last leg. Let's do this.
Time's up. Let's do this.
Down to 3.
Well, actually up to 5. But still, it's a very scary moment for Theude, as now RDU has an opportunity to potentially end the game with any kind of 4-point damage. He did use Power Overwhelming, though, and I think he did use a Soulfire earlier. Does he have another way to win the game? He goes for a life tap. We don't see what it is.
Gosh.
Iron Beak Owl off the top.
Sludge Belcher, that's going to keep him alive. Because if you look at it, Theude had 12 points of damage. He needed something to taunt up against it or heal. So he could stay alive with things like Earthen Ring Farseer, but does he want to just run his minions to his death? Sludge Belcher is like a perfect draw on this spot.
Perfect, other than game-ending damage. And now
Oh
he's
my
representing, so
gosh.
he can't go through because he has to remove. But Unstable Ghoul gives him a little bit of extra health too. Wait, but Harrison will be at 1 HP, so Unstable Ghoul does become a little bit of a damage liability for his own creatures. Because he is going to be able to go for these trades and survive a turn.
I wonder.
Hold on, he needs to go for some kind of clear here, but he has it.
He's really taking his times in this spot.
Yes.
Speaking of Bata, he wants to make sure that there's not anything that he's missing.
All right, and you need to kind of play something defensive. Oh man, it's just a Soulfire off the top can just kill Theude.
you can tell he really doesn't want to play as Unstable. I don't think he should either. I think he should hold on to it.
Yep. Now, by the way, RDU does have a silence, so if for some reason he has like a way to do 2 extra damage, to like give it 2 damage buff, and like say he has a second power overwhelming, that's also enough to push through.
Hellfire.
A big moment. Any kind of damage? Oh, it's a Soulfire off the top!
Wow.
RDU takes game number 3 and defeats the Warrior deck and gets 1 step closer to evening out the entire Grand Finals and sending it to his last best of 5. What an exciting finish.
Lotheb got it. Lotheb dealt at least 10 damage just to Theude's face, and then got a little bit more value out of it after that. It's really important that cards like that you don't take too much damage from minions that you otherwise can kind of deal with, and it's you know, another one of those unintended consequences of Lotheb. It's like not only is it increases your opponent's spells, so that way you can get initiative, but it's a very large threat too. People I think sometimes underestimate just how big a 5/5 can be.
Check this out. RDU keeps Mortal Coil, by the way, because then if you have the opportunity to use it on the Twilight Drake that's been silenced, you know, it'll be a powerful position. And I do know that the handlock player, especially in light mode, will make you play your threats before your opponent.
A couple of turns just passing back and forth here. There's a very large difference in these handlock builds, by the way. One of them, Theude's got he's got Shadow Bolt and he's got copies of Jiraxis in his deck. That's very different than what RDU's running. RDU's not running Jiraxis at all. He doesn't have copies of Shadow Bolt. I'm kind of curious what Shadow Bolt exactly is aimed at, but it feels like an okay card in this matchup. So Mountain Giant's now coming down for both players. A little bit of a staring contest.
Yeah, but this gives RDU the ability to kind of choose his battles, right? Because this is the cases where, you know, in the past, before Sludge Belcher came, you used to be able to faceless your Mountain Giant, or even play Mountain Giant number 2 and pick trade and still make it difficult for your opponent to respond. And then you hit the turn of Siphon Soul a little bit earlier than your opponent.
Yep. Like, if he chooses to go for the face here, it's one of those spots that's, like, so dangerous to be making, because the closer your opponent gets to Mountain Giants, like, the closer they get to a swing turn. So, if you're going to Shadow Flame here, obviously it makes a lot more sense to go for the face, but always sort of dangerous. 2 Shadow Bolts now picked up. What are these Shadow Bolts aimed at, by the way, do you think?
Let's see, what has a lot of 4 health creatures that you're trying to counter here? That might be a weaker matchup, right? Are you trying to kill off... Nothing jumps off the mind immediately. Like, I feel like maybe that's the best way to deal with something like Animal Companions early on, but are you really expecting Hunter to get through if you're banning it?
Yeah, that's what's so weird to me. I'm not seeing like what the major use for that card is.
It probably has to do something with a specific matchup that he wants Handlock to still be good at, and he's going to be banning Hunter. Maybe it's like he wants an answer to Gadgets and Auctioneer in case he doesn't have Soulfire, like another way to deal damage in case he doesn't have Shadow Flame and Soulfire. You know, like deal with the early threats of Azure Drake and SI7 agents, because a very real thing that's been happening is if you ban Hunter, again, Miracle still is out there, so you have to be careful, because that might all of a sudden gets launched again into the top tiers. But Miracle is extremely powerful.
Always good to keep thinking about that sort of stuff.
These Hamlock mirrors, by the way, can get so crazy with damage early on. Just considering the fact that he's at 18, if he like silences this and Leroy power overwhelming Soulfire, that's lethal.
Yep.
So Theude has to also be very mindful of the ways he can just easily die.
Gosh, it's really painful to be using this much damage. But he's already got Leroy and and Faceless Manipulator lined up. So if he can make it to a safe point, I think he's going to be sitting comfortable.
Ooh. I like Lotheb here because you have Leroy to shut down.
Oh my gosh, did he just basically get lethal with the... Wait, if he plays Lotheb, what can his opponent play in response to Lotheb here? Then Lotheb's going to be 5 damage, 6 from Leroy, that's 11 points, 4 from Power Overwhelming, and then 4 from Soulfire?
Even has ability
Wait, does he just
to... He has the ability next turn to also coin Hellfire, so he's got 17 damage from the hand next turn.
Oh my gosh! I think that it just locked up the game.
Yeah, Lothep shuts down the ability to try to answer this. And RDU is so clever. He played Sun Fury first, by the way, so that way his opponent can't use Faces to taunt it and get through it, so that way he has another way to push through.
Yep.
Like, he's just shutting down every single option. No Black Knight.
Yep.
He's making sure to cover all of his bases. Just
Wow.
one of these minions have to survive, and RDU wins this game.
That's checkmate. He has no way to actually deal with this. Even if he Leroy's to pull damage off the board. 4, 10, yeah, just every single play leads. Every single play leads to him being dead next turn.
This is a really clever 2-turn puzzle that RDU is able to solve. You know, everyone can solve the turn 1 puzzle given enough time, but RDU is able to recognize immediately rather than just playing defensive and just saying, yeah, well, you know what, I can set up over the course of a few turns the damage I have in hand to end it, and take a miracle rogues approach where you calculate your Leroy and count down from this point on. RDU is going to win best of 5 number 1, which means it's going to reset to a 0-0 score, and we're going to find out who's going to be the champion of this tournament.
Wowie. What a series. Some very strong finishes from RDU. Handlock putting out a